And here we are. We're live. Well,
Yes,
kind of
we are.
live.
Well, sort of live. We're not exactly
But
technically live, friends, but we are in the comments with you.
yeah, we're live in the chat with you, but we're recorded so that we can chat with you in real time because we're here to tell you about our book that's launching today, right now. It's called Dream, Dare, Disrupt. And Rachel, I think you have a copy of it.
I have a copy
Look how
right here.
beautiful that is.
I know.
It's
I'm a
so
big fan
great.
of green. I mean, look at my background. Like, it just makes me feel like there's new life in front of us.
I know. It's a fantastic book. I need to get my hands on it. Unlike you, the audience, I need to get my hands on the copy of the book. So the origin of this book, right? We were kind of sitting around and looking at the church, kind of post-pandemic. We're all trying to figure this out. And there was a central question that kept coming up. We kept asking ourselves, someone should do something about this,
That's exactly right.
right? Like, yeah,
Matt, I think it really began because you and I realized that we're not young clergy anymore. We're
speak for
like,
yourself.
we're right in the middle of like our careers, and we've been invested in really incredibly.
Right.
There are so many pastors and district superintendents and bishops. For those of you who are in different denominations, those are our denominational leaders in the United Methodist Church, and organizations, foundations like the Texas Methodist Foundation, Wesleyan Impact Partners, the Louisiana Foundation, the West Ohio Foundation. The Ohio Foundation. There's so many people who have invested in us, and I could go on and on about those investments. And we realize it's time for us to invest in other people and other clergy and laity across the country who are really wrestling with what do we do in this new season of ministry? I mean, the pandemic did a number on us. All of a sudden, all of us were scrambling. We were trying to figure out, what do we do here? What if we don't have our buildings? We don't have access to the things that we're used to. And there was this massive kind of activity, massive innovation, massive like crisis, becoming entrepreneurs on the fly. And then when all of that, quote unquote, settled down, if you will, we were left with a church that didn't look the same. And it's never going to be the same. And so we started asking ourselves the question, who is out there cheerleading, encouraging, pouring into new generations of people to help them move from where we are today to God's preferred future? It was a really legitimate question. And we looked at each other and said, one thing we know is no one has the playbook, because there isn't one. We're no longer experts at anything. We're all fellow sojourners on this journey in ministry. So in order to move into the future, we've got to do it together. That collaboration is the future. And instead of being limited, particularly in our denomination, to a certain jurisdiction or a certain annual conference, what if we collaborated across the system, because we're a connectional system, and leveraged our influences for the sake of the kingdom in the future of the church?
Right. And kind of from 1,000 miles apart, we were asking the same kind of questions, right? Because we were both really curious about where the church is headed. What does this look like? So that's kind of where this book begins, is what is your curiosity? Where are you curious? What are the things that get you out of the bed in the morning? What is God calling you into? But not only that, it's one thing to kind of investigate this curiosity of where your excitement is in terms of ministry, but also, where is your curiosity being policed? What are the boundaries of your curiosity? And not just the boundaries that people are putting on your curiosity. One thing we talk about is, if you're reading Shakespeare in English class, you get an A+, but if you're reading Shakespeare in math class, you're kind of a nuisance to everybody. But sometimes the curiosity that we place on ourselves, like in our own fear of like, should I even be asking these questions? And because we were curious, that's kind of the place where this kind of journey starts with Dream, Dare, Disrupt, that dreaming curiosity, because we ourselves were curious of where the church is going. And then that kind of naturally moved into, well, who needs to be a part of your team? What does leadership look like in this kind of emerging movement, right?
For a long time, we were just talking about this, Matt. We were steeped in this tradition that you needed to be like the solo hero leader. The buck stops
it's all
with you.
on you.
It's all on your shoulders. And so, and let me say, that is so seductive. Like that is, it just pulls. I mean, I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. So, I'm I'm like achiever competition. So I just want to win all the time. That's just how it is.
All I do is win,
exactly.
no matter
and
what.
And so all of a sudden we're finding ourselves, and even before the pandemic, I began to recognize that the future is less about one individual person and so much more about collaboration. If we read our Bibles, it's been about that the whole time. But the reality is, like, we were so steeped, and we're unlearning that every day. We are unlearning that leadership is not about one individual person or certain people who have the goods, but it is about the priesthood of all believers. It's about the entirety of the body of Christ working out of their call and giftedness. And we have all kinds of gifts in each one of our congregations. Our congregations are chock full of gifts because there are people, and our people are our best resource. So we started really looking at some of the limitations that we've put on our leadership and ways in which we ourselves can be empowers of people. I think about, I actually just ran into a mentor, a pastor of mine. His name is Bill Lyle. And Bill's really laid a foundation for me around leadership 20 years ago. And on his team, he had a layperson. Her name was Susan Odell. And Susan really was instrumental in helping me understand what you'll find in the book is the Jethro principle. I mean, she was just absolutely, she's the first person that kind of exposed me to that principle. Again, as you read through this book, this is a book of experimentation. This is a book of like 20 years of learning. This is, we started with curiosity, we moved on to leadership. And so we are still ourselves working through this process. And so when I learned about I can't hoard all that leadership to myself, that I really need to share the leadership. And not only is that good for the church, but that's actually good for my own mental health and longevity and sustainability. Like, it was never about me in the first place. It should never be about any one human being. And so as I was kind of working through that, I would like to say immediately I became I mastered this art of team building. But the truth is, Matt, it's taken me like 20 freaking years to actually empower people. Because if I'm gut honest, my ego had to get out of the way. And I had to be willing to empower other people, even if that meant disappointing people and their expectations of me.
And I appreciate that you said freaking, because you made me nervous. You made me very nervous there for a second. And also, I also want you to put in the chat, one, if there's something that you're curious about and you want to learn more about, I'd love to hear that in the chat. Also, in terms of leadership, who are the mentors who have mentored you along the way? Would love to see
Give them a shout out
in the chat. Yeah. First and last name, as Rachel's dropping first and last names of all the people. So when we have this collaborative leadership is also adaptive, right? As we've learned from the pandemic, you got to pivot. You got to learn how to pivot. Ministry is a prototype, right? We're not setting rules for the next generation. We're setting rules for today and tomorrow and maybe the next day. But then that leads us into, what are we willing to risk in order to add value to what we're doing? And I love in the book, you'll read more about this, of kind of our disagreement on entrepreneurship, which is kind of the next movement of the book, because we really looked at this in different ways. For me, entrepreneurship was really about adding value to what you're doing. And I get that because I'm a student of Disney, and Walt Disney was always about plussing things and adding value, and it's never done, and making it bigger and louder. You're a 3. I'm a 7. So bigger, louder, faster, all of those are really good and good things. But you said, hold on, it's not about bigger, louder, faster.
Yeah.
It's also about stepping out in faith and what you're willing to risk in terms of entrepreneurship. And that's something that you brought to the table in terms of entrepreneurship and your work, especially with folks in Ohio and New Albany that you found.
Well, and it's really interesting, and you've talked to us about this on the podcast a lot, that the margin of error is very thin in the life of the church.
Yeah.
And so it's difficult these days for people to want to risk anything, to make any kind of bold moves. And sometimes we're paralyzed by fear. But entrepreneurship really, really does help us move out of this place of fear into this place of experimentation, which is extremely important, which leads, when you've worked through curiosity, leadership, entrepreneurship, you find yourself in a place of innovation and you're innovating. And a lot of times people think innovation is a destination. No, friends. No, friends. It's kind of the fruit of your labors. And then guess what? You're repeating the process all over again because the world is ever changing. And, the message of Christ, this love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, that doesn't change. That doesn't change. Those are the marching orders, so to speak. But the methods are ever changing.
And that's the fun thing. Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
And the thing about innovation, we also sometimes think about innovation as something that has an on-off switch, or something about technology, or something that has to be rooted with data and this kind of thing. And no, it's simply what is uniquely you that God has blessed you with, but is also useful to where you are and with your people, right? It is that intersection of what is unique to you and what is useful. And, someone who is a really great example of this, really of someone who has really leaned into all four of these movements, is Kristen Cooper of Coop's Soups. Should we bring her on?
We should totally bring her on.
Kristen! So Kristen, we're bringing Kristen on. She's not even paying attention. She's like looking, she's reading a book. She's not. Oh, there she is. Hey, Kristen Cooper of Coop's Soups. There she is. Can you hear us, Kristen? Maybe not. Oh, there she is. She's probably writing a sermon, getting ready. Well, while she's typing, we're going to tell you a little bit about Kristen. So Kristen is a licensed local pastor, and she has a nonprofit called Coop Soups out of Maryland. Is that right? Is it Maryland?
She said her audio just went weird. So
awesome. Well, as she continues to work on her audio, Kristen has this really amazing. You could check out her website. You could look her up. The way that Kristen has really embodied curiosity and entrepreneurship and leadership, but also as she continues to innovate in what she has done with Coop Soup is really fantastic. She's in the book. We've also interviewed her on podcasts in the way that she has taken a risk in terms of what she has done. She's smiling, so maybe she can hear us now.
No, she's going to go out and come back in. So Matt, what we'll do is we'll cut out this part. You know what I'm saying? Yep. That's what we'll do. So she's coming out. Yep. This is why we pre-recorded.
This is why we pre-record these things.
Yeah. So we'll have, this is a note for Ellie as we're welcoming her on, off and on. You know what I'm saying?
Chop it up.
Yep. That's what we'll do. And see if we can get her.
She has not logged out yet. Add to stage.
Okay, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Welcome, Kristen. We got you. Hey. Fantastic.
Yay.
Kristen Cooper.
Adapting on the fly, right?
That's exactly right.
Soups.
Kristen, we are so glad you are here. We recognize, Kristen was doing her thing long before we were doing ours. So let's just be clear. Kristen didn't go through our process, but she is such an embodiment of curiosity, leadership, entrepreneurship, and innovation. And, Kristen, just talk to us a little bit about your story. You don't have to share the whole piece, but how have you been, where did your curiosity start? How did that turn into leadership and entrepreneurship? And we'll start there.
Yes. So much of my story, I know it's like all these little pieces kind of colliding into one, but I would really mark it in January of 2018. I was working at a church. I was on staff at a church, and it felt like the calendar of the church was very full. And I remember I'd been on staff, I think, for 3 years, and I had started to really identify that it felt like while we're encouraging people to have this personal intimate relationship with Jesus, it was almost this unwritten expectation that would then mean that you're signing up for all these things on our calendar. And I just started to feel like, well, these people have real things going on in their life, but we're not really able to be fully present to those needs because we're so busy.
Ooh, say
And
that.
Right. Yeah.
so I was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
starting to that was one identification that was starting to kind of become clear. At the same time, I was in seminary and I was feeling called to pastoral ministry, but I was really starting to feel like the pastoral ministry I was being trained for didn't feel like a good fit, kind of a more traditional model. But I knew that didn't mean I wasn't a good fit for pastoral ministry, just that it was going to look different for me.
Right.
And then kind of this third component was my neighborhood. So my literal neighborhood, we had a trash receptacle, a shared trash receptacle, and it was so messy all the time. And I knew from like a college research paper that I had done years ago, I knew that when people know their neighbors, they take care of their neighborhood more, because now this affects Nancy, and this affects Joseph, and this affects Carl. And so when you know your neighbors, it's this you're moved to take care of your neighborhood, and because it's going to affect this personal person. So this trash receptacle started to become a thing for me of like, this symbolizes that we don't know our neighbors. And I was really starting to feel called to being in relationship with my neighbor. And because of these things I was kind of putting together of like, well, this way of kind of being in relationship with Jesus felt synonymous with also being really busy. And that was a marker of success. But that didn't feel quite right. The pastoral ministry of like being removed from the people literally, and how we kind of set up our sanctuary, that also didn't, like, my office is in a building. That's not, what if my office was like out in what if my neighborhood was my office? Like, how would that change things up? So, and then this trash receptacle showed me, including me, I don't know my neighbors. And so in January 2018, I heard this podcast episode talk about the turquoise table in Texas.
Yeah.
It's now, yes. Okay. So
I'm super familiar. Yeah.
So this woman didn't know her neighbors, moved to the neighborhood and took a picnic table out in her front yard, painted it turquoise, and just started to be at the table, like drinking coffee, hanging out with her dog, and neighbors would walk by and she would invite them to sit down at the turquoise table, and they built community this way. And I was like, whoa, that is so simple. It's so simple. It's just a table and
I have to eat anyway.
And then you were just there. You didn't like have face painting for the children. You didn't have like the invite to the Bible study next week. You were just there. You didn't have like the bulletin that was going to tell you how we were going to like move through this meeting. So I was like, that just really started to resonate. And so I'm in seminary exploring this pastoral call. I'm at this church, didn't feel quite right. That way of doing ministry didn't feel quite right. I don't know my neighbors. So I make soup just for fun at this time. And so I was like, well, I'm going to just share some soup with my neighbors. And so I just started to take soup to my literal neighbors and just meet them. And one example I have is I like knocked on a neighbor's door, and actually this was before, I didn't have soup at this time. I had like bread, like a pumpkin bread. I knocked on a neighbor's door and they didn't answer, but I heard them behind the door. And then I like went back the next day, same scenario, heard them behind the door. And I think at this point I'd already met two neighbors that had gone well. So I was feeling encouraged, also kind of discouraged in this moment, but my bread's going to go bad. It's like 2 days old at this point. So I walked to the next neighbor's door, and she opened the door and we got to talking. She's from Ohio, and we got to talking, and long story short, I learned that she was a CPA. We started to build relationships, and she's our bookkeeper for Coop Soup.
That's
like
wild.
8 years later.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm making soup and meeting my neighbors, and over the course of like 6 to 7 months, I'm budgeting to quit my church job, and I feel really called to just be at that kind of not exactly like a missionary in my neighborhood, but like be in my neighborhood, building community. And for me, that looked like I want to love my neighbors because I love God. This is my love for God is overflowing into like my love for neighbors and my interest and curiosity in meeting them. And I have since been able to articulate getting to know my neighbors made in the image of God. I get to know more of who God is, and I love God. So that's what I want to do. I want to get to know more of who God is. So anyways, sharing soup, and I just started, and so now it's the fall, and so I've become friends with some of my neighbors, and I say I want to explore what I'd come to know is this dinner church model in my apartment, and I'm going to bring soup, and you bring yourself, and that's what we're going to do. And so people said yes, and they came into our apartment. I invited some friends and neighbors. I at this point had just quit my church job. I'm in my last year of seminary. And the people said, the soup is really good. You should think about selling it. And I knew about this entrepreneurial model where a church could start an enterprise that reflected the ministry that was happening in the church. And so after 4 months of them saying like, this is really good, you should think about trying it, I really felt like, I feel like this is like a spiritual discernment moment of like, this keeps happening and I don't have any money and I'm not making money and I'm experimenting experimenting for my last year of seminary with on one salary, my spouse's. So I say, I'm going to explore this. And so I email my market manager and I say, I've never made soup for more than 15 people, but I have this product and I'd like to try to sell it at the farmer's market. And we purposely chose the farmer's market because at the time that I did make this decision, so now January 2018 is when I heard that turquoise podcast. So now we're at January of 2019. So January of 2019 is when I emailed the market manager and I had been able to identify what does a soup enterprise look like that reflects the ministry that's happening in the church or this dinner church model. And so we were slowing down and practicing being present to the food in front of us and the people that we're sharing it with as an encounter with God's grace and an invitation into deeper intimacy with God's love. What if the soup did that? And what if the process of how we sold the soup, what if everything kind of stirred community, so to speak, at every level. So it made sense to sell our soup at the farmer's market where we could meet our neighbors in person. And then there are just some snowball decisions kind of after that. But that's really kind of how it got started, was me saying, I feel called to pastoral ministry. It's going to look different for me. This model of doing church feels rushed and busy, and that doesn't feel authentic. And then I don't know my neighbors. This trash receptacle is representing that. And so what does it look like if I go out in my neighborhood literally and love God and love my neighbors? And the soup just kind of revealed itself as the tool. What I've now really been able to say is this is the tool for me to neighbor.
It's amazing to me because as you're articulating all these things, like the questions and the curiosity and the wrestling that you did at the beginning, like, is this even possible? And then taking those steps, like, listen to all the practicality. Okay, I think this might be possible. Let me do some budgeting. Let me take a risk, all the risk taking, all the entrepreneurship, and really trusting in the Spirit's leading to say, you're going to open literally the next right door. Some doors are going to be closed.
Yes.
And some doors are going to be open. Now, Kristen, I could talk to you about this ministry all day, but I recognize, like, and you're continuing in this process because not only do you sell at farmers market, but you also, have a whole process where you get together and you cook the soup together. And it too is a form of community and church and people building. Again, the soup is the tool. It is not,
That's right.
It's not the thing. It's just not the thing. But now there's this whole new layer. It's brand new. You have a community garden.
Yes.
And it's just been launched. Tell us a little bit about this innovation that has happened in your ministry.
Yes. Okay. I love talking about this. I'm just like, it's happening. So once a month we make soup and we donate it to our local food bank. And we've been doing this for almost 2 years now, and it's once a month. And it has snowballed to having more hands to chop onions than there are onions to chop. And so, and again, just kind of with my pastor hat on, that is a good problem, but it is also a problem because people are there to chop onions. And so, and it's that mix of like, you're there because you want to cook together in community and do something meaningful together, but also, so you don't have to chop like a lot of onions, but also you're also there to feel like you want, like when the soup is done at the end, you want to feel like you participated, and that, you know, so
Right.
it's all mixed in there together. So I want that for people. I would want that. And so, so I met a bread baker in the fall, and I invited her into being a part of a bread team. I said, this is my vision. I want a soup making team, a bread team, and a garden team. But I hadn't met the garden person yet. And again, I wasn't gonna, like, because I hadn't met a person yet that knew how to garden, because I'm a novice gardener. That was kind of just like on the back burner or in my little folder of like ideas. But anyways, I met Hope, the bread baker. And again, this is a year and a half in. So like we launched this gathering with just really soup as the vision. And what started to come to be is, like I said, more hands than onions. And so I was like, well, how do we say yes to all the volunteers? I don't want to say no. But so I want to say yes to everybody who wants to come and volunteer. But what's clear is we need more jobs. So when I met Hope, I said, I want to start this bread team. Here's my vision. It's once a month, blah, blah, blah. And so she was an up and coming startup sourdough bread business. And that has like a huge heart for community. So there were a lot of shared values. And she's like, yes, I want to be a part of this. So she's helping with the bread team. And then I think a month later, I met a woman named Tiffany, who is a garden coach and consultant for a town 10 minutes away from here. I met her at the farmer's market, and I invited her to come and make soup and donate it. Not thinking about the garden, just like making conversation at the farmer's market, like come and make soup, blah, blah, blah. And when she came, because I think that's another thing, right, is it's all volunteer. And I've been in church ministry now for just over 10 years. Like people say they're going to come and they don't. Like they've got good intentions, but things come up. So I'm like, I think maybe that's why I didn't think of it at the time, but like think like Tiffany's coming. I was like, maybe Tiffany's coming. She said she's coming. So anyways, she came. And at the end of the night, I said, can you walk, this shed's kind of in the way in front of the parking lot, but behind the shed is the garden. That's like a neglected, weedy field. I could like post photos. It was crazy. Anyways, so I said, can you come look at this with me? And she got really excited and I got really excited. And then I just kind of said the same thing. I said, we've got more hands than we've got onions, and this bread team is so great, but like we could use this third piece. I think it'd be so cool to have a garden team, a bread team, and a soup team. And also just kind of this full circle, like we're growing the produce that goes in the soup. We're growing the herbs that are going to go in the bread. We're going to nourish our bodies with this, and we're going to eat the same food that our neighbors fighting food insecurity are going to eat, because we're never going to share food that we ourselves want to eat.
Say that.
And so this garden team. So anyways, she was very interested. And so last fall, we had two garden work nights, and we just invited, I just invite everybody. Like, I just think that's
Right.
hard. You just never know what's going to stick. I'm just like, hey, we're doing this. I met like my literal neighbor, actually, like a couple months ago. She was like, what are you doing for fun this weekend? So I told her, and then I just said, you're invited. And then she was like, I want to come. And I was like, great. And so anyways, so I invited Tiffany in. We had 2 work nights. And then this early March, we got together at the farmer's market. That felt right. We like had a little picnic, and Tiffany pulled out her like AI generated image of like what this could look like with the produce that I'd like sent like a list ahead of time. And we just got really excited. And then I said, okay, so like, what are the next steps? And I think she had some, because she does this garden consulting coaching. She said, here are the nurseries that I think will donate to you if you go to them and say, I need these supplies. Here's the email that I send, so you can draft your own email. And then she just said, kind of similar, just tell people you're doing this, and I think you're going to experience the abundance that garden is. People just tell you, I have seeds or I have plants. And that's 100% what we've experienced. So,
wow.
So we got the garden ready at the end of March, and we've just kind of had these spontaneous work nights that feel like parties. Like it's just like it's literally, because like literally like just last Sunday or Monday night we had a garden work night. I mean, maybe they don't need to be called, I don't know, they also are kind of work nights, but anyways, I'm again, simmering names. But anyways, it was a work night, but then literally it just overflowed. Like people were like, I'm bringing this and I'm bringing these tomatoes and I'm going to bring some lettuce. And then people were like, I have this thing. I have rhubarb from my garden that's over. So I'm going to bring a crisp to eat. And then somebody's like, I'm bringing tortellini salad. And it just literally came into this, like at the end of the night, I was like, this was like a garden party. Yeah. And then, yes. So anyways, that's our newest venture, and it folds into kind of like what you're saying, it folds into our once a month gathering. So now we have like a soup team and a bread team and a garden team. And then it also just is one more key activity of I was like thinking about this a couple weeks ago, just again kind of naming for myself, like this is like one more, how did I word it? Like one more grassroots community finding God in the work we do.
Say that. It's amazing to me, Kristen. Like, I know there are going to be a lot of people listening, and in the church, there's so much scarcity mindset. There's so much, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough people. I don't have enough resources. And you are embodying the kingdom of God. You are embodying the antithesis of not enough. There's always more than enough. And it's not just because of your, like, again, you're not a solo hero leader. It's not just your faith. You believe in the faith of the people in your community. You believe in their leadership. You believe in their giftedness. You just keep believing, and then keep saying, well, you're invited, and you're invited, and you're invited, and you're invited. And so that's exactly what we're trying to do here. We are not trying to create innovations. In fact, we have no idea the project or the piece that God is stirring in your heart. We're actually trying to create innovators, people who believe that the Holy Spirit that's alive and well in them is capable of moving them from here to there, moving them from this paralysis to this place of faithfulness. We just happen to have a book that kind of guides you through it. We actually have a workbook that's called The Sandbox, because we're playing. Listen to the playing that you're doing.
I love that.
We are giving people permission to play. This is not about having it all figured out. This is not about, we're experts in the field. No, we are all fellow sojourners who are saying, pick up a shovel, literally, pick up a rake, and let's get in the dirt. Let's get in the sandbox together and figure this out together.
I'll just say this. I think going back to that scarcity mindset, like, yes, that's right. It's so common. But I was going to say, like, yes, on your own, you don't have all these things. And maybe that's the point. Like,
yes.
So maybe that's the point, is it was never about you. It was never all about you. It was always about the community. It was always about the neighborhood. And when the neighborhood and community come together, there is an overflow. There's an overflow.
I love that. So, Kristen, we're going to make you stay on here at the end of this with us. I would encourage people, give a shout out to Kristen, just encourage her. I think encouragement is so important across the entire body of Christ. It's so really important for us to be an encouragement with one another. Matt and I are always available for a conversation. We do want to encourage you, pick up one of our Dream Dare Disrupts books, also the workbook. Yes, you can work it through yourself, but reach out to us. You can find us at thehubforinnovation.org, and we'd love to connect with you in any kind of way that could be helpful. We have several things that are coming up in our immediate future. When this podcast, listen to me, when we go live with this launch, we're going to be working with students going through the same process at MTSO, Methodist Theological School of Ohio in Delaware, Ohio. And we've been working with churches and pastors and organizations and laity to kind of help them work through this process. So we would love for you to reach out to us so that we can cheer you on, just like we're cheering Kristen on.
Yeah, we'll also be at Leadership Institute later this year. So if you want to see us in person, we'd love to see you there and talk about this process. And Kristen, what I love about what you're doing, so chapter 1 of the book is called Yes and.
Yeah.
Right? And it seems like over and over again, Kristen, you've been saying yes and to what God has been calling you to do. And it all, I don't want to say it all started with soup, because I love your website. It says it all started with soup and a ladle, and then you scroll and it's like, actually, it didn't start with that. I love that you looked at a trash can and saw what had been discarded and now have turned this into a movement. And like, what a great and powerful metaphor for the ministry that you're doing. This yes and this beautiful thing of what has been discarded and turning into abundance. So anyway, to everyone who has joined us this time. And Kristen just told me that she can't hear me. So just Rachel, will you tell her she can hear you? Will you tell her that I said really cool things about what she's
he's
doing?
just encouraging you. That's what he's encouraging you to do. And he's talking about how like the first chapter of this book is a yes and chapter. And that's what you're embodying, the yes and. So friends, yes, we're promoting our book, but even in the promotion of our book, we're trying to model for you that it ain't about us. We're in this ministry together. And so we're giving a shout out to Coop Soups and the work that you're doing. So friends, find us, and we want to help you out as much as we possibly can. We love you all. We'll see you soon.